And welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Right now, very excited to have back on our friend Mary Trump, psychologist, creator of Mary Trump Media, which is on YouTube at Mary Trump Media, and New York Times bestselling author of various books, including Who Could Ever Love You, a family memoir. Mary, nice to see you.
Hey, Dean, it's great to be here.
So let's talk. Look, this is a question because you knew Donald Trump as a person before all of this insanity that we're living through here. He looks particularly unhappy. Like
Hmm.
at the inauguration, everything today with FEMA just lashing out. And look, it wasn't like he was a bundle of joy the first time, but there were moments of like seemed to be enjoyment or smile. He really like something is up. And do you have any insight based on knowing him in the past? Like what could be going on here?
Well, first of all, he was pretty miserable at that first inauguration too. Look, my first book is called Too Much and Never Enough.
Right.
And the never enough part means there is literally nothing on this planet. There's no sum of money, there's no degree of power that will ever compensate for the fact that there is this black hole of need inside of him that can never be filled. This is a man who, and I know this is going to sound impossible to believe, but it happens to be true. The thing he most craves, and this is an unconscious craving, of course, is to be loved. But because of the way, because of his childhood, and because my grandfather was basically a sociopath, he has been rendered unlovable. So, like, think about that conundrum. I mean, it's quite.
Right.
I have nobody should have sympathy or empathy for him,
I understand.
but that's a pretty miserable place to be. So that's why he's so acquisitive. I need more money. I need more power. If I have more money, if I'm cruel enough, so this need will be filled, and it never will be.
So, I mean, and you remind me from your first book. I remember talking to you, meeting you, and talking about your first book, where, at one point, your uncle Donald then invites you to come work for him and wants you to help write a book, and it seemed like he was actually being helpful. Were there moments of humanity with him that are gone now that you would see?
Yeah, and I mean, this is sort of the tragedy of a lot of people in my family. My dad was a genuinely good, decent, kind, empathetic, generous, funny human being. Those were all qualities my grandfather had no use for. So it essentially ended up destroying my father. So his four siblings were raised seeing this because my dad was the oldest son, and the boys in particular learned, I should say Donald in particular learned, that if you want to succeed with my grandfather, who was a vicious, vicious guy, you can't be anything like Freddie. You need to be a killer. You need to have no empathy or generosity or kindness towards other human beings. However, most people do have those impulses, right?
Right.
They over time get beaten out of you. And, I think let's put it, Donald was never like a great guy. Like he was never like this really, he's never somebody who would say, oh, he's so nice and he's so helpful and he's so generous. But there were moments where you could tell he really wanted to be. Same thing with my Aunt Marianne. She really wanted to be, but then if something always intervened, and usually it was greed.
So when we saw Donald get very upset when Reverend Marianne Buddy talked about compassion and empathy and mercy to his face, I mean, I'm not trying to, you're a psychologist. I'm not trying to get in there, but I'm intrigued by some of, I don't know why, because he is present, so he has power over us on some level, what he can do. But I wonder if there's a push and pull in him, or that part is dead, that part. So he's just annoyed that someone dares to talk to him to his face like a lecture and talks about things that he views as weakness now, which are compassion, empathy, and mercy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's some very deep, dark part of him that understood the rebuke in the way it was intended, but publicly and consciously, what we saw was his reaction to somebody stepping out of line. How dare she? How dare she speak to me this way? And this is what happens when you put somebody like him in charge. The thing that just mystified me back in 2016 was that what, 60 whatever million people decided that, I mean, and this is how it felt to me. Not obviously,
Right.
this is not what people were choosing, but like, you want to turn this country into a version of my family? Are you out of your minds? And here we are. And it's so much worse now because I think part of it too, Dean, is to your initial point, is that he's much older
Yeah.
and it's not fun. And he, not that he understands it this way, but the wealth, the power, the cruelty, it's not compensatory. Because like, what is it really changing for him? Like, how is his life different now, really? So he's just kind of getting nothing out of it. Well, hooray. But, in the meantime, a lot of us are going to suffer.
No, I agree. I just think it's not out of a curiosity because I'm concerned for Donald Trump. I
No,
could
of
care less
course.
what happens to him. It because he is president, so he has an inordinate amount of power and can impact our lives, and even not us directly, others that we might care about or have compassion, empathy for. So I look at it that way, and I wonder. You mentioned him getting older. Does he see like the curtain coming down, like it's near the end, and this is it, and there's no more worlds to conquer, like Alexander? And is there a kind of like he can't get a third term legally. He can try, and he will. If he's of health, he will try. We know that. But I really think Republican ambition might even stop him because they want to run. They've had enough of him.
Right. Right.
And the Constitution is very clear. That's why the congressman had to introduce something yesterday, which is going nowhere. But that
Right.
kind of reminds people that it's very clear he can't run for a third term legally. So, barring him really doing something illegal, this is it. It's the end. Every day he's a lame. Every day he's truly a lame duck president. Like each day that goes, lame duck person on some level for him. I have to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point. The difference between Donald and my grandfather is my grandfather actually cared about his legacy.
Oh,
And like, if he knew what Donald and my aunts and other uncle did to my grandfather's empire, he would have, I'm not entirely sure how he would have reacted. Like, it would have destroyed him because um he believed that it should be go on in perpetuity. 3 years after he died, they sold it lock, stock, and barrel. There's no Trump empire anymore. And Donald does not have one. It's just all smoke and mirrors and loans and selling his name and stuff like that. So Donald, on the other hand, is a nihilist. He literally does not believe that anything can exist beyond him.
mhm.
And that's pretty terrifying. Like, if you think that it all ends and there's no reason to care about the world or other human beings, if you're no longer in the world, then what is the point of you, really?
I'm chatting with Mary Trump. And earlier today, he said we should get rid of FEMA. Like he's just lashing out. We should get rid of FEMA.
Mhm.
And because they treated people in North Carolina badly. That instinct to me, that comment, consistent with what you just said, is he wants to be a king. We don't need agencies. If you're good to him, you'll get rewarded. If you're not good to him, if you're a blue state and you didn't bend the knee to him, you don't get any aid. That's how it's going to go. I mean, this is really what we're dealing with. This man, he has every instinct of a Mussolini or a Hitler or an Orban, any of these people who want to run everything themselves, no checks and balances. And he's really close. He's as close as you can come to that right now with controlling the Supreme Court, the House, and the Senate. And Republicans won't stand up to him at all. And even some Democrats, you're like, please tell me you're kidding. Please, this common ground with this guy, you're kidding me. And this is where we are. In the big picture, how do you feel now? I mean, we're a week into him being back. The unthinkable has actually happened, and we're here now.
Yeah, it's only 5 days. Just feels like a week.
He's aging the
um,
crap out of us.
yeah, it's a lot. And I think I'm trying really hard to disengage in some ways and
Hmm.
and help other people do that because um, I said this on the maybe it was yesterday or Tuesday before the nerds. We have no right to be surprised. We have no right to be
Hmm.
shocked. This is none of it's breathtaking. We should have known. We should have been prepared for this if we were paying attention. So let's not waste our energy being horrified. Let's not, why be demoralized? I mean, the only way to be demoralized is to do nothing, right?
Right.
So I think we have to accept the fact that Republicans control everything. And there is very little to nothing that we can do in terms of blocking them or in terms of enacting our own policies. We just have to hope that we keep it together enough and we make it clear to the American people that there has to be an election in 2026, right? So I think, and look, when I say this, I don't mean that Republicans aren't worse. Republicans are horrific, but we also know that we can't expect anything from them. They are all in on the fascism. They are all in, whether it's out of fear or whether it's out of a desire for their own power, or whether it's because they actually are completely in line with Donald Trump. They're not going to do anything. And we need to be very clear about that. So, I've said before, Merrick Garland is the worst attorney general in my lifetime. Was Bill Barr better? No, but Merrick Garland actually had the opportunity and the backing of the administration and would have been on the right side of history if he had just done his job. And he refused to do that job. So because of Merrick Garland, Donald Trump is president of the United States right now. He should not have been even allowed to be a candidate, right? So the problem isn't that, Republicans are better. It's that the only people we can expect anything from right now are elected Democrats, and they are failing us. I don't know if you saw the clip of Amy Klobuchar, who rode in the limousine with Joe Biden and Donald, and she was like a kid at a candy store. It was so exciting, and I can't tell you what went on, but it's like, are you kidding me? If you had to be there for ceremonial reasons or whatever, you just look at your feet and you don't say a word. You do not respond to him. You don't chat with him. You don't giggle with him. Grow up and understand what it means to be an opposition party. And so far, I don't see it.
I'm talking with Mary Trump. I agree. The point you made on Merrick Garland is so important, because I have people who call and go like, "Oh, you're so hard on Merrick Garland. What about Mitch McConnell, the Republicans in the Senate?" They go, "It's like blaming a rattlesnake for biting you. That's what they're going to do." I don't expect anything of them. So why would you even bring them up? Joe Biden appoints Merrick Garland, nominates him to be AG. He's supposed to protect America. It wasn't protect. It's not about Trump, the Republican. It's Trump attempted a coup and decided a terrorist attack. He should be in jail. This is beyond my intellectual capability to comprehend where we are as a nation. I keep thinking this is an experiment that we're in right now. Like, this can't be real. How could this happen? So we've got that. I'm not kidding. Many times I'm like, what's going on? My friend Brittany Brave is a comedian. Just the other day was saying she's microdosing America because she's very real activist on reproductive freedom and stuff. She was like, you can't take it every day. And I understand that. And that's sort of an interesting way of putting it. For Democrats, I will say this. I've had members of Congress on Democrats who tell me we're fighting. And I'm like, I don't know where you are, because these two people, who were on this week, Bonnie Watson Coleman and Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, are fighters. Like, they are fighters. But I'm like, it's not just about messaging anymore. It's about medium. You're not in the right medium, or corporate media, forget it. They're not going to cover you because they're pro-Donald, right? So that's life. You got to go outside of that. But what's missing is one unified voice, the Democratic Party, saying this is what we stand for. There are individuals, some great fighters, AOC, Jasmine Crockett, Jamie Raskin. We go through the list, But as a voice, nothing. You have Fetterman going to Mar-a-Lago, other Democrats writing op-eds about finding common ground. With the guy who told us was a fascist just 3 months ago, now find common ground? Like, what is going on? Someone wake me from this. This can't be real. That's how I feel half the time. I can't believe this.
Yeah, it is. Dean, you've been saying this. We've been saying it on the Nerds. I've been saying it. You do not ever make common cause with fascists, ever, no matter what it is. Even if it's objectively a good piece of legislation, you just do not do that ever. So, after the election, like, the first word out of Chuck Schumer's mouth was bipartisanship. It's like, what? And, Biden, oh, fascist, destroy democracy. Oh, welcome to the White House, Donald. Let's have a nice roaring fire for you. Would you like some hot chocolate? I don't know. I mean, the idea of shaking that man's hand after what he's done to this country, after what he's done to the individuals in the party, what he's done to Biden, and the fact that Donald is now talking about the fact that Biden should have pardoned himself because they're going to be invested. It's like, come on, man, you asked for it. You asked for it. And they are not responding accordingly. And I think one of the most mystifying things about this and you know this as well as anybody, Dean, is that the Republican Party is giving them absolutely no reason to reach across the aisle.
Yeah.
The Republican Party is like, we hate you and we want to destroy you, and we're going to lie about you, and we're going to destroy your country, and we're going to make the lives of hundreds of millions of Americans worse.
And Democrats, like, you see, they're putting an olive branch out. Like, out of your mind, they're trying to kill us.
Yeah.
That's what Democrats are like. Well, it's always Democrats who won their seat, but their district went to Trump. But the minute these Democrats see Donald's numbers start to fall, which they're going to, we know they are, like all presidents, but especially Donald, all of a sudden, in about a few months from now, 6 months from now, they're going to reemerge and they're going to be with us. And so be it. I want to, and again, I ask you this because of your personal connection. Donald's now getting rid of DEI programs. We talked about it in your Nerd Adventures yesterday, the snitch program, also ending the 1965 executive order of LBJ that was to enforce the Civil Rights Act, which bars federal contractors from having a whites only program. And now you can go back to whites. Literally, you can be a federal contractor and do whites only, and it's fine. When you were growing up and you saw Donald, were there any black executives at Trump? Were there people of color in the Trump organization, high-ranking officials at all?
I never saw one. And I grew up in a building my grandfather owned, and I grew up in Jamaica, Queens, which when I was a kid was like 70% black and 30% white, approximately. I mean, I don't really know the exact numbers, but because South Jamaica was the biggest part of the neighborhood, and it was majority black. And there was one black person who lived in my building. I mean, they're racists. They are not racist. Like, that's my distinction. Like, a lot of white people in America, because of the media environment in which we grew up in, because of just the way we're socialized, there's a lot of knee-jerk racism, right?
Mm-hmm.
But being a racist is a choice.
Sure.
My family, I never saw it with my dad, but my grandparents, my Donald for sure, one of my aunts, they were racists. And there's it's so obvious to me that it's shocking that it took the media, like, what, 3 or 4 years before they were willing to state the obvious.
I just saw an article before we came on from a few years ago. It talked about the Trump organization. There was not one black person as an executive above something low level. And they talked to people going back from 1980 to the present day. So, and of course, Trump refused, his father and Donald, to rent to black people. And Donald even said in response, all the white people are going to leave and they're going to flock to the suburbs. Like, he was very clear about what it was. And this is what we're dealing with right now. So, last thing, Mary, I think we talked about in Nerd Adventures yesterday, Donald Trump pardoning the January 6th attackers here. And even anti-abortion people who were convicted for 5 years of, it wasn't the same. They weren't attacking Capitol, but they did blockade an anti-abortion abortion clinic, and they pushed people a little bit. I'm not going to say it was the same as beating up police officers, but it seems the pattern is, if you're on our side, I've got you. I mean, he did it for the March for Life, I guess, is this weekend. So he's giving them, so his idea of rewarding the base now is letting out prisoners or criminals, convicted felons, who are on the side of MAGA. And I don't know what he's building, but it seems kind of apparent to a lot of people. What is your take?
That we should be very worried and very vigilant, because that is where we're trending. And I mean, I guess the good news is that it's happening out in the open, so we can't pretend that we don't know. And I think part of it is helping make it clear to people just how bad it is. Really look at what happened to these police officers. Really look at the danger Congress people and their staff members were under on January 6th. Look at who, I forget his name, I apologize, Daniel Albright, who founded the Silk Road on the dark web. Look at what he actually was serving 2 life sentences plus 40 years without possibility of parole. This is a man who made tens and hundreds of $millions off the sex trafficking of children and drug running. And you could hire a hitman, and he got a fee for all of it. That's the guy Donald pardoned. Think about the lives who have that have been ruined by just Daniel Albright, just the January 6th insurrectionists, and remind people that yes, it was violence against police officers, which is, I mean, horrific. I can't imagine what they're going through right now, but also people who were accused of the second largest crime against the United States of America, seditious conspiracy. That is not okay. And the person making those pardons, who is literally using one criterion alone. You supported me. If you support me, you can get whatever you want. And I'm telling you, Dean, if you and I went to him on bended knee and said we atone for our sins, but you're the best, we would be taken in too. He's that thirsty and needy and damaged.
All right, well, we'll have to discuss that and see how things go the next few months. I'm kidding. And the guy's name, by the way, it's Ross Ulbricht. I'd forgotten it, but in case, because people are listening, are like, it's not Daniel, it's Ross Ulbricht.
Yeah, it's like,
he's a really bad guy, the Silk Road guy. And I had Jennifer Taub on yesterday, and we talked about that very thing and about the crimes that he had committed. And again, these people are convicted. So, well, Mary, thank you, my friend, for spending some time with us on a Friday. Appreciate it. Again, the YouTube channel is the Mary Trump Media. Subscribe. It's free. It's on YouTube at Mary Trump Media. And I do Nerd Adventures when I can. It's a great show. And you have so many other great shows there. So thanks for being on. Have a great weekend, my friend. We're here for each other. And all of us listening, we are all here for each other. So we're going to get through it. It's going to be difficult, but we're going to make it through.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dean. It's great to see you.